I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What is this? I'm gonna not follow the agenda because I want to keep John here. More pickleball discussion, which we do first before we get into the routine of the regular business. And I know you've all gotten a lot of stuff from me. I assume everybody has memorized it. Just give one of these to Carrie. I did ask John to sit in, and now I've lost it. Where
It's under discussion.
I didn't realize you would print all this stuff out.
It's a reference, in case they didn't read every word.
All right. Where is John's?
It's under.
Do you want my discussion?
No, it's
No,
got.
no, no.
Okay. Right here.
John has furnished a list of existing.
Under discussion. Don is under discussion right now. So in your books, that's where he is, and he's referencing a document towards the back of that pile of papers.
John is
Like 10
with-
to the back. Looks like.
Little graph page.
Are these standalone courts? Or
Yes, they are.
Courts. Do you have any idea how many courts there are that are converted tennis courts or augmented tennis courts? I don't know how you call
Do you mean just with pickleball or also with or also
That
with
are dual
basketball?
it. No, I don't care about basketball.
I'd say I've come across at least 10 of them, 10 existing tennis courts that have pickleball.
Oh my God, again?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
oh, put your video, mute yourself, would you?
It's fairly common these days for any asphalt court to have the pickleball lines, regular tennis lines, and I would say over 50% of them also come with the basketball.
And these are with the pickleball court centered within the tennis
Yes,
court.
using the
So
standard.
using the
standard net,
the
yep.
center one, because that seems to be what's most common. And you say you think there are about a dozen of those?
At least 10 or 12, yeah, that I've come across.
All right, so, I mean, if we are going to do any regulations on them, we would have to do both for a standalone bill, which, let me see, what are the dates on these? These are all within the last year.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep, all pandemic on.
Okay, well then, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this stuff, but I think it makes a compelling case that we have to do something. And is that the consensus?
Yes.
Or-
Yes.
or- okay. So then the question kind of is what to do. So let me just go over some of the points all of this is immaterial. Let's agree on certain things that are there. One of the gentlemen who was on the call last week, the guy from Scott Line Road, said, where, where are you getting all the science from? Well, it is readily available and it permeates all of this stuff, but there seems to be general agreement that pickleball is noisy, and it is noisier than any other court activity. And it generates a noise level of between 57 and 65 dBA. dBA are decibels put on a range in terms of the way it's logarithmic, the way sound is processed by the human ear. The consultant comes through here, but also in our consultant's report, is to put that into perspective, this 57 to 65 degree dBA, and the variance is called by the different kind of bracket or the different kind of balls that are used. And there are indoor equipment and there's outdoor equipment. And the indoor equipment doesn't make as much noise as the outdoor equipment, but the people who really like to play the game prefer the outdoor equipment on the outdoors, and that's the noisiest equipment. A lot of the reports talk about ambient noise. You can see it in some of the charts and also in some of the narratives and also in our consultant's report. But ambient noise is in a relatively dense suburban community is a little over 50 decibels. And even that can be annoying. Our consultant says, and it's also borne out elsewhere in terms of nighttime ambient noise, that the ambient noise in a more rural suburban community, such as Sagaponack, is about 40 decibels during the night. And our consultant recommended that we try as much as we could using mitigation measures to get noise mitigation that would get it down to 50 decibels. And he also states, and we should make it clear in any regulation that we have, that a distance of 200 feet from a property line, there would be no apparent noise or no noise that would be at all bothersome, as long as the court is 200 feet away from the property line. So whatever restrictions and regulations we put in would only be for courts that are within 200 feet of the property line, which I suspect are most of them, except for some rare instances. So how do we do this? Our consultant recommended really two things: a 60-foot setback for new installations, a 4-foot depth below grade, and a 6-foot noise barrier on 3 sides, the 3 sides closest to the property lines. And he estimates that that would bring a reduction of 17 dBA, 7 from the 60-foot setback distance, 10 from the 10-foot noise barrier, or the equivalent. Although the 4 feet below grade is much more effective than just a plain noise barrier. That setback is 15 feet further than our normal tennis court setback. But I think the noise studies indicate that that's warranted. And if we had a 60-foot setback and the width of a regulation pickleball court is 40 feet, that would be 100 feet. Excuse me, the width is 30 feet of the pickleball court. That would total a 90-foot setback distance from the property line, which is the same distance as we have for a sunken tennis court, because this tennis court is 60 feet wide and requires a 30-foot setback. So by imposing a 60-foot setback on these pickleball courts, it would be no more constraining on a property in terms of the depth of that court from property line than a normal tennis court. John, do you see any problem if we have those regulations for new installs?
Not on a court that would have the lot coverage to actually carry a pickleball court as well.
Well, no, we're not talking about the converted ones. I'm
No,
talking
I'm
about
talking about a
standalone.
lot that would be big enough to have a standalone pickleball court to meet, setbacks and lot coverage. You're gonna be over an acre at that point in time. So given the width and everything else, I don't think that 60 feet is going to, it'll make things a little closer to the house. It's not going to deter them or prevent them from having a pickleball court.
All right. Then we deal with the court within a tennis court. And from all the reading I've done, and you now know most of what I know if you do read this, it is very unlikely with current technology and noise mitigation options that people seem to know about, that we can get full reduction down to 50 dBA from a pickleball court within a tennis court. And ironically, there's probably going to be more natural or more existing barrier to a pickleball court that's on a sunken tennis court than there will be from a pickleball court on a at-grade tennis court. The 4-foot depth is going to be more of a barrier than the extra 15 feet on the setbacks.
Are you saying we can't get to the 50 decibels on the pickleball court in a tennis court?
No, I think the only mitigation that we can put on an at-grade tennis court would either be forcing them to put up a 10-foot solid barrier, if not the length of the tennis court, probably at least an 80 feet, 40 feet on either side of the net, 10 feet high. Now, normal tennis courts in Sagaponic, do they have 10-foot fences?
No, we limit them to an 8-foot fence, which is standard in the tennis court industry.
10 foot is that's most standard for public courts.
That could be to prevent the balls going over.
Or-
Out of all the ones I've ever seen, I've built 6 of them myself. I've never had a fence
Well, I
taller
know-
than 8 feet.
But even at most tennis clubs, they have 10-foot.
Probably just to retain the balls.
Well, that's the only reason you have a fence. But here, they're limited to 8 feet.
Our code limits it to 8 foot.
So if we were to use this acoustic fence material, which is used for tennis court noise abatement, they would only have an armature of 8 feet high on which to put it.
Yes, unless you
Unless it was sunken.
change the code to allow for a 10-foot tennis court fence.
All of the studies that we have in those books are for tennis courts with fences 10 feet or over. So whatever noise reductions that they claim were observed, which were a maximum of 10 decibels, would be less if these would apply to an 8-foot fence. I can get an estimate of how much less, but basically that's short of having to put up a wall. We are only going to be able to reduce the decibel amount by 7 or 8 decibels from the installation of that material. The 45-foot setback will probably, according to our consultant, compared to a 60-foot setback, would probably be about a 4 or 5 decibel reduction. So that at the property line, even with this barrier at an 8-foot height, you would be getting less than 10 decibel reduction. Now, if it were a sunken tennis court, then you could just make them have a 6-foot high noise barrier. I don't know what in the pickle courts that have been approved, what kind of containment they have.
2 of them are sunken with a retaining wall. Each one of them has one has a 3-foot guard protector, the other has a 4-foot. There are 2 at grade, and the other one that's sunken, they actually sculpted the land down to it. So there's not a retaining wall or such like that. It's a much more gradual slope, which would allow the sound to escape that pit much easier.
Okay.
And so someone just got one a week ago.
Pardon?
Someone just got one on April 4th. Oh, it was issued April 4th.
Oh, that was, that's on, in Parsons Pond.
Yeah.
That was
So it's
a-
probably Michael Davis.
It's Michael.
That's his notice.
Closed out? What does that mean?
Means the CFO or the CFC was issued, so the building permit was closed out April 4th. The bid permit was issued December
Yeah.
6th of
So it's
2021.
all in and good and done. Mhm. It's the one off here.
So our options are somewhat limited on the pre-existing ones, or are they?
We could regulate the conversion and then specify that they have to have the insulation of the net or the wall, depending upon what the pre-existing condition is. If it's sunken and they want to convert it to a pickleball, so we have to come for permission. You put a 6-foot fence on top of the 4-foot sunken, or we could require netting to be installed for use.
Oh, well, these curtains are not, these are not.
Oh, they're an installation.
curtains. They are airtight
Oh,
down to the floor. They don't, there's no gaps. They're not something you just
oh.
can erect.
I thought it was like a stage curtain.
No, the material is called LD1. It's a very heavy rubber, converts sound wave into heat wave. And it comes in black, clear, brown.
Green.
Yeah, we put it between subfloor and oak floor to deaden the sound from one level to another. Stuff.
And there is a specific product for it, which is called Acoustifence. I think it's a synthetic material. I think it's only 1/8 of an inch thick.
Does it go in between a fence or could it go, like, could it
No, it
stand
don't.
on its own
It-
above
It
the
hangs,
8 foot?
it hangs on the fence. It's
Oh.
attached to the
Okay.
the existing top rail.
Fantastic.
The existing.
I have seen it sandwiched between stockade fence to prevent road noise and stuff like that, 6-foot high fencing with a layer of this acoustic fence LD1 in between. It's very effective.
Um, Brian, legally, what can we do? Is pickleball a different use of a
Yes.
court than tennis?
Yes. The proposed legislation that we originally were kicking around had us adding a pickleball court definition on what it is for, what pickleball is, what pickleball courts are. And the original proposal was to have a different setback than tennis.
And we would, and it would,
Yeah.
that would be for new.
Correct. That led us into the discussion of what about conversion of existing tennis courts? Because you can't just pick up a tennis court and move it from 45 to 60.
No,
That's the problem.
I think we have to address it, both of them separately. a
yeah, we
conversion-
do, we can do.
Yeah, a new one should be 60 feet. I think that's settled. I think it's 60.
New ones are no problem.
Right, should be 60. The question is what to do with the conversion.
What we do with the old ones?
For the conversion, can we require the noise, that curtain or whatever we were just talking about, that synthetic curtain?
I think that that's what we'll probably do. Here's my only concern that I have is no one ever shirks the building code, right? No one ever tries to shortcut it, get around it ever, John, right? Ever. Right. So
Oh, dear.
my concern is that someone applies for a new tennis court, gets the advantage of not having to go back 60 feet, but then goes to the 45 for the tennis court and then says, you know what, my kids don't want to play tennis. They really want to play pickleball. So now I've got an approved tennis court at 45 and they want to immediately convert it to,
Or they may not even want to build a court.
right. Let's say they do, then they get into the conversion status. I think we would probably require the acoustic wall, the barrier, or the net. But then I wonder if we're just chasing our tail and we really should not have it at 60 and just have it at 45, knowing that the shortcut to court would be 45 feet. And they can do the conversion as soon as they finish building the tennis court. Just thinking out loud.
That makes sense because it's creating steps, right, John? That they have to go
I mean,
through.
the whole conversion, honestly, a pickleball and net is the same as a tennis net.
No,
Conversion
it's
is just
just
lines.
slower.
But then how would you capture that? If you got a tennis court, you built it to code, John issued the CFC on it, and then they put in a pickleball.
Noise complaint.
The net is 2
Yeah.
inches
That'd be the
lower.
only way
It
to
could be
keep
just lower than that.
No, unless someone self-reported,
Yeah.
it would be a noise, a lot of, most village enforcement is noise driven, complaint driven.
Well, and technically, that's the same thing in the gas blower issue, that we may be able to inform X amount of landscapers, but you never get all of them.
Right.
So hence, you're right, the noise complaint leads to solving the other percentile. So maybe
Maybe that's the way to handle it.
that's the best way of handling it.
Yep.
If no neighbor complains, then it's not a problem.
Or
If a neighbor does complain
then they
about
have to do.
pickleball noise, pickleball noise has been measured. But I think in our code, we have a noise limit of 61 decibels.
I think so.
Or any new tennis court built cannot be transferred to a pickleball court.
No, I think. we
They make
should-
their minds up then and
I
there.
don't think we should make any new pickleball court, any new tennis court is gonna be sunk 45 feet, 4 feet.
Oh, so we
Period.
sink all new tennis courts with the understanding that people could potentially convert them, as well as it is better for tennis
But
courts
it's
too.
much easier to put a noise barrier on
Sunken court.
6 foot.
Yeah, 6 feet as opposed to
That's-
10.
You know, any fence company could just do it.
I
They-
had a couple of thoughts that isn't, I had a question and thought that if, didn't it say somewhere that the fence to work had to be within 10 feet of the pickleball court? But if the pickleball court is in the middle of the tennis
It's
court,
not to work most effective.
right,
So if the
Okay.
pickleball court is
in the middle, it's gonna,
in the middle,
yeah,
it is gonna be potentially less effective. I mean,
right, it's better than nothing. And then also, if the tennis court's 45 feet away and the pickleball court is in the middle of the tennis court, that basically is 60 feet. So,
well, no, only half of it is. Half of the pickleball court is within the,
The center half,
uh,
not the 2/4 on the side.
the lines, the lines, the playing area is 30 feet
right,
as opposed to 60. So
oh,
if
it's
in-
not all the way,
So if
right,
it's in the
got it,
middle, it's
Okay.
only 15
right,
additional feet,
right.
but that is for above ground court,
Right.
60 feet.
You could convert a tennis court to multiple pickleball courts, though.
You could, but it's very impractical. I mean,
It'd be hard.
one, you have to get temporary nets, which are available.
What if they abandoned the tennis court use and just went to pickleball,
Well, pickleball.
all pickleball all the time?
Now,
Well-
4 courts.
They could
No,
not.
no, or we could make that not happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
restricted.
Yes.
Do
One
4
pickleball
pickleball
Yeah,
courts.
one per revamped tennis court.
one per revamped tennis court.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing.
Well, because what,
It's not really very practical unless you're gonna be having a tournament.
No?
have two going at the same. Well, the other issue is how many lots do we have that have 2 tennis courts? No, I'm glad you gave me that look. See, couldn't think of one either. So
I
why,
know of one. I know of 2, because one is a grass court, one is a hard true court. And the other one is an asphalt court and a hard true court, and he calls the asphalt court the practice.
gotcha. So the reason why you would want to define it is there are large pieces of property that potentially have 2 courts already, and there could be more in the future with, people redoing some of the larger lots we have. So you really need to define how many pickleball courts you have per lot, because if someone happened to have 2 and it got divided into a 4, you have a private club going on.
Yes,
And boy, would that be noisy.
yes.
One of the ones with the 2 courts actually abutted Miss Butler's property. And they not only have the 2 tennis courts, but also a basketball court.
Oh,
I mean, they're a full-on recreational facility.
No, it becomes a public facility.
Better than my middle school.
I know that property, God. I remember basketball playing, since I was showing the house next door.
Basketball isn't as noisy.
And many times basketball is just one person shooting hoops.
It's not hours and hours.
Hours of, yeah, they don't have a whole team out there. Out here, it's just one person or 2 or 3 kids shooting hoops.
So John, what do you think we should do with the pre-existing courts?
Honestly, I don't know. It's very difficult to enforce because how do I see, especially if it's a sunken court? These extra lines are painted on at a whim, you know?
No, the only way I think we're gonna find out about this in a definitive way is if somebody complains.
Mhm. And I can't say as we've ever gotten any noise complaints about a tennis court. I have gotten noise complaints about basketball courts that are illegally placed,
That are what?
illegally placed,
Oh,
where they mount a hoop in their driveway right next to their neighbor's bed.
That ugly thing on the stand, push one.
no, these are true.
They're always permanently mounted.
Well, then
Rubberized
should our
coating.
feeling be that if nobody's complaining, no harm is being done.
Or as I like to put it, if my phone doesn't ring,
But if the noise is reported, then we would have those rules in place that if you have converted your tennis court and noise is reported as a complaint, you must do X, Y, Z.
Right.
Clearly in the rule.
Tennis court conversion to pickleball, assuming there's a neighbor to complain or whatever the noise complaint is, and it's found by John that your tennis court was converted to a pickleball court, you must, you must install a minimum 10-foot acoustic fence. If it is acoustic barrier,
One,
on the 3 sides.
the whole tennis court
Yep, 3 sides of the, I think it'll be, have to be the whole tennis
or
court.
the
No,
pickleball
no,
court?
it wouldn't. If you just did the length of the side closest to the.
Complaining neighbor.
I mean,
To the side yard.
normally I would suspect, a tennis court is laid out because of the sun
Mhm.
and normally face north-south. Is that correct? Your pickleball court, if you're gonna use the same net, and it's stupid not to, is gonna have the same orientation. And so I think we have to be talking about the side closest to property line. Or if we're setting pickleball courts back 60 feet, do we have any rear yards that are less than, what are your rear yard setbacks?
most typical in this neighborhood, in this village, are 30-foot side.
Or 30 foot? Well, I think we're gonna have to say then, if they're within, if the courts are within 60 feet of any property line,
Yeah, so that means
would
3
have to-
sides.
they would,
It's
well,
three.
or at least 2.
It would be at least 2.
2, yeah.
So the original,
Then it would be for the 2 sides closest to the nearest property line.
the original proposal that we circulated to the board was the pickleball court must be surrounded on 3
Yeah,
sides.
well, that's for pickleball court, with the tennis court. If you've got the 120-foot length as the closest to a property line, you don't necessarily have to have a noise, if you have a noise barrier that's extending 120 feet,
Right.
you don't need side fencing unless they're very close to the rear property line, then you would want it on that side.
And one more wrinkle, we do have courts that are askew on the lot to make the north-south alignment. So it sort of fits like a triangle into one of the corners of the rear yard. And then you're gonna wind up with the same two sides of the
Two
yard that
sides.
would have to be done. So it would cover it all.
So if well, Brian, not we. Brian did the hard work and redrafted this, and we May 11th, I think is the date, and I might be wrong. We could do another public hearing.
We have to do another public.
Right, so should we advertise for that?
Not yet.
No, because we
don't
need
have
the
it.
draft to drive. All right, so we could not do a public hearing until June, maybe.
Mhm.
Okay,
And what about the ones wanting to get put through now?
They're different animals. You're talking about.
Even though
2
to
and
put
3.
a moratorium on, we couldn't put the moratorium on until
Same
June.
thing.
Right, got a public hearing to do that.
Well, we could have a special meeting to set a public hearing for next month.
Hey, you have scared 2 people in here with tennis court permits. You have scared 2 people into this building with tennis court permits.
We are changing tennis courts.
Yeah, originally, that was in the mix, and everybody heard that and said, better make sure I secure my rights.
you know, and you are totally right. There was a lot of misinformation out there. Easter Sunday at church, and I was walking out and someone cornered me and they thought we were putting pickleball behind the village hall and they were excited that they could use it. And I was just so dumbfounded.
That's a great idea.
I was so dumbfounded. And I thought to myself, did they just say that?
That's so funny.
That's one of the best telephone games I've ever
That
heard
is
of.
a really good.
I was like,
I
oh, no. I said, no, we're just defining pickleball courts and check the website, there will be more information, but I was just taken. So you have to realize people hear what they want to hear, and that's why 2 people came to you.
That's a great telephone game.
That is so fun.
But I all I could think of is 2 pickleball in the village hall. So, anyway.
So what we've got now,
Let's get
so I think,
back on
I think
the
we've
field
got,
of ground.
now is to keep tennis court as it is, 150% of the side yards. Keep it, and just move that section in to a section T, just from the footnotes in, just procedural change, substantively exactly the same. 150% of the side yard. On new pickleball courts, 60 feet
And a 4-foot.
side yard with a 4-foot depth,
And a 6-foot.
6-foot noise barrier. On conversions, if the converted court is within 60 feet of a side yard, we would require the installation of a sound attenuation wall, which we were material, at least 10 feet. So if it's sunken, it would only have to be 6.
So we have an 8-foot height limit.
I would keep it at 8, that way the standard tennis court fence that already exists can be used to hold the material that you're looking for.
Well, aren't there extensions to make it 2 more feet taller?
Well,
It would be like, think of a typical chain link fence, I mean, that's the most average tennis court fence, to get a mechanism that would actually clamp on it to raise another 2 feet would be difficult to find.
Well, at each pole,
Each one would have to be taken apart.
let's invent
extended,
it.
And then the chain link would have to be extended.
Now, probably, John, if it's within 60 feet of a side yard, they probably wouldn't, the tennis court probably would not be sunken.
We have a great mixture, because we have courts that go back, long before the village was incorporated. Anything that's pretty much new, most people are trying to maximize their yard, so almost all of them are sunken.
Okay.
I can only think of a couple that were at grade. We've had people actually see a court at grade and then change their mind and pay for it to be sunken.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's a separate topic. I don't want to mix tennis courts.
But the tennis courts we're talking about what's out there for conversion
I mean,
purposes.
it is possible that we might want to consider to say, you build a tennis court, you sink it. But let's leave that to another.
Yeah. So right now, we're talking about conversion.
We're talking about, well, not so much conversion, use of a tennis court as a pickleball court.
Mhm. And if you do that, you're within 60 feet of a side yard, you would install the sound attenuation on the side closest to the property line.
We'd want it, even if they were 60 feet away.
Mhm. Or beyond 60 feet.
Well, no, but what did you
If
say?
you're within 60 feet of a side yard.
You mean 45?
Yeah.
Then you would just,
59, 45.
Yeah,
well, that means the pickleball court would actually be 75 feet from the side yard. You would still, even 60 feet, according to the MMH consultant, 60-foot setback will reduce the noise by 7 to 10 decibels, just in and of itself. And then we're supplementing that with the noise barrier.
Right, but in our scenario,
For
60,
new courts.
right, correct, new courts only, 60 feet.
Now, if somebody's converting an old tennis court with a 60-foot setback, you're gonna get a noise reduction of maybe 7 decibels. You're still gonna be over what we would consider a tolerable noise level.
unless you put the attenuation wall up.
Yes.
Correct.
So I don't think we should make it that you're home free because you have a 60-foot setback.
Yeah, so if you're within 60, if your existing tennis court is converted to pickleball
Yes,
and you're within the 60 feet of a side yard,
yes.
you got to install the attenuation, sound attenuation on the closest wall to the side yard.
And if it's askew,
What height?
2 walls.
8 feet.
8 feet.
And what if it's askew on the property or whatever the word was?
I don't think it should be within the 60 feet.
Well, you could have a tennis court that's 45.
We could have a tennis court of 30.
But even if you had it at 60 feet, you would have you would still have a noise problem. It's still different if we had the pickleball and we just made it, say, 60 feet.
Mhm.
We would be losing the necessary, the required noise reduction. So I would not exclude a tennis court that's 60 feet away at grade from having to put up this acoustic fence.
So any conversion, you want to put up the wall.
Yeah,
The sound.
on the two, that's not that expensive. I mean, it's not cheap, but you're talking, like 180 running feet,
So any conversion of any tennis court.
unless it's 200 feet away.
And how many walls are we doing?
2.
2. Which walls do you decide to do?
2, the two
Well, I know there's
two
one
sides
closest
of
to the
the
property.
court nearest property lines.
Just 2?
Just 2 on these are conversions
Yeah.
for tennis courts, not standalone new courts. The problem is we can't force anybody to do that.
Well, unless they get a complaint, they get a ticket for the conversion from tennis to pickleball.
Okay, so that would only then,
Code
we don't
enforcement.
put that in the code,
Right.
but
It's a consequence of enforcement.
if you have converted your tennis court, then is this what you're saying? If you've converted your tennis court into pickleball use, that's not what your permit said.
Correct. You have an approved tennis court. You don't have an approved pickleball court where this court would be 60 feet away and
Well,
sunken.
But it's not, you don't have an approved.
Correct.
pickleball.
Correct.
All right.
So we're
Let
not
the- let the
mandating
Building
this.
inspector break the good news.
Yes.
We are,
I
But
thought it
you
was
have to get
contingent
caught.
to getting caught.
yes. No, but we're mandating, but there's no way that we can check all those situations every year. All those tennis
The only
courts.
times we're gonna find it is
Is
if
by
I noise
complaint.
complaint, or if I do an updated CO and walk out to the tennis court and see the additional lines.
Which is not unusual in code enforcement.
No, I mean, that's how you find
And-
That's how
most
you find
basements and stuff like that.
And illegal
They can
kitchens
say
and guest
it.
houses.
So.
But I bought the place, I
They'll
don't
just be
use this.
postponing the proper,
And take up the names.
they'll just be postponing the proper way to do it.
What would be the proper way to do it?
Well, putting the wall. I mean,
But remember, they may choose when they convert the court to come in and find out what they're supposed to do.
and may not.
And they may not. And the same thing happens with guest house that put full kitchens in them and other problems that John comes across.
Conversion of habitable space and
Yeah,
garage.
So they don't go to jail, they just fix the problem at a later date.
Yes. But the law is in place,
Correct.
correctly put in.
Because it caused a
And
problem.
We have numerous of those right now.
Yeah, it happens.
But they need to get a permit, another permit, which does cost money, so.
Right.
I
And
don't
it happens
care
all
if
the
they give them
time.
the
People-
permit for free.
John, I'm
Careful what
sure
you say.
drives by frequently and sees things, and other times he finds them when the house is sold and they need a new CO for that transaction. Because Maryland, pretty much every house that's sold nowadays requires an updated CO, correct?
Well, and a lot of the, not all of them, but,
Buyer beware.
Right.
I wouldn't buy a house without an updated CO.
Right.
well, people, a lot of times when there's an illegal advantage, an illegal pool house where they sleep with 2 bedrooms and 3rd floors and
Kitchenette.
all these wonderful amenities that you're not allowed to have. People will buy it without a CO.
That's 100% true.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, and then if someone gets hurt or your house burns down, you're out of luck.
Right.
That's right.
What was the tennis player's name?
Yeah, he just got us. Yeah.
That's right. All
All
right,
right.
did we bury pickleball now?
No, we haven't.
I've done the joke.
Brian, would you prepare a draft
Sure.
to circulate among us?
One detail. You said two, I'm sorry,
What?
2 sides nearest the property lines. What if it is parallel with it? You just have the longest side. You don't have 2 sides. Just the closest side.
You're gonna have 2 closest sides.
Unless there's a reserve behind you or something, where the neighbors
Yeah.
are.
There's always 2 closest sides. If something is 4-sided, 2 sides are gonna be closest.
Right, but what if you're way over from the setback on that side? What if you're way to the property to the right? You've only, and it runs, and the, it's just possible, and the court runs parallel to the side yard?
Yeah, we,
No, but the court would have to run parallel to 2 side yards and be within, what is it, 60 feet?
Could be.
Did they have?
we do
panhandles?
have a couple
Right,
of
there
lots
could be.
which have an extension on them.
Extension, right,
One is down near Sag Pond, they tried to do the subdivision on it, where they fit the tennis court in there and they have their 30-foot setback on each side and 60 feet in the middle. And I mean, it just shoehorned in.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just say near side or sides.
Yes.
What sides within, what, within the setback.
Yeah, because there could be, the tennis could be like that.
Well, no, it could be in a narrow lot,
Yeah.
Yes, and then there's three neighbors.
and there are three neighbors,
So
so
near is
Near
some.
sides.
then it would be for any side. It could be all
Pluralizing
four
it covers
sides.
it.
Right.
And it-
I think we should put up 3.
That was the original proposal, as recommended by the,
Well, it was three.
yeah.
Well,
The three
on
sides.
option, I got it.
The three sides nearest property.
Yeah, so it's 3 sides, and the original proposal said surrounded on 3 sides by the sound attenuation wall, blah, 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 with the middle section of the wall on the court side closest to the nearest adjoining property line.
Unless a third side is agricultural or, you know,
I think the way you decide or sides,
I
that
think
gives
that's-
John the discretion to go out there and look and see if,
Right, because
Three or
then the
three,
carries
or
point.
you don't have
Yes.
to put 3 up,
Right.
but I mean, if there's 3 neighbors, you should put 3 up.
I mean, I think to your point, Gary, originally, where you said if it's a skew,
Yeah,
you could get 2 sides, and then John will say, well, look, they're both, 59 and 59, or whatever.
And maybe there are little bump outs of lots where people do tennis courts where they're 30 feet from any property line.
Right.
And you make a
Sides.
good point, if it borders an agricultural field, that has its own setback, I mean, there's no point in attenuating sound to an ag field.
right. So you don't have to put
Or a road.
3 up unless you have
But it
3
gives John,
aggravated neighbors.
Is this for
it gives John the
Conversion.
discretion to figure it out by
Yeah.
saying sides.
Mhm.
So it covers all
Yeah,
those,
sides, I think that works.
it covers all those options.
Yep. Okay.
But when we're doing this, and what are we doing then for the pre-existing courts?
Pre-existing courts,
That are being used for pre-existing tennis courts that are being used as pickleball courts.
well, if they're pre-existing, prior to the change of the law, they would be non-conforming.
Well, no, we have pre-existing courts that meet tennis court setbacks right now. I think, it's a matter of, you have a sunken
But
court
they were
30 feet
for
away.
tennis courts, not for pickleball.
Right. So what about,
So what, I mean.
So what's the pickleball thing?
So that's the court
he just
conversion
read it.
that we were talking about, where if it gets turned in by a noise complaint, or I find it on an updated CO, they would be required to install the sound attenuation wall.
And so what I'm saying, it's, the pre-existing use is a tennis court.
Mhm.
The change of use or the supplementary use is a pickleball court.
the conversion?
He doesn't like that word.
No, you don't like conversion.
Word conversion
Yeah,
of the supplemental
Okay.
use.
so it could be used as both courts, right, Don? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they are. Or I doubt somebody buys.
well, I think that they should be covered by the more noisy pickleball use. And I think supplemental use,
Well, I do too, so if a pickleball court has been installed within a tennis court,
Mhm.
then there's only 2 ways we're gonna know about it. Either a neighbor complains of noise, or John on his meticulous inspection or an updated CO discovers that this is
New
a
stripes.
multi-use court.
yes, new stripes.
And a new use that requires noise mitigation
Mhm.
of some sort. It's either distance or noise barrier.
Multi-use court is a good one, Don. We should put that in as a definition, and then it would be the most restrictive, whatever is being played on that court.
It's a good
You
definition.
can call it that.
Uh,
That would get Padel
That is not a noise problem.
Looks like it's noisy.
Well, it may, I've never heard it
Nothing else,
play.
we're getting an education. I never
It's
heard of
not
that.
because it has screens
Yeah.
and rubber balls.
Tennis played in the winter, who's outside in the winter unless you're playing paddle tennis.
Everybody's got their windows shut.
Exactly.
Right, no complaints there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, are we afraid that we're gonna have a raft of preemptive pickleball permit applications?
We would have had them.
Hmm?
We would have had them.
Okay.
Yeah. well, please.
Well, let's say we do.
And John, you're just gonna have to slow down.
Just falls off the edge of the desk.
Go to the bottom of the pile.
Well, what are the options? Educate me, I'm new here.
What are the options?
Yeah,
Well, if somebody put an
moratorium,
yes, but if
Okay.
somebody put an application in tomorrow for a pickleball court, it would take probably about 4 weeks to issue that permit, start to finish. So in 4 weeks, you're not gonna have the code in place, but in
And the
4
time-
weeks,
right.
you would wait, even the moratorium is gonna be,
That's gonna be, the moratorium is gonna be time consuming, because you have to have a local law to do a moratorium to stop any uses. And technically, it has to be referred to the Suffolk County Planning Commission under.
It's harder to get a
is that
moratorium
a
or than
permissive
to do what we're
referendum
doing.
too?
No.
It's not a
let's
moratorium.
know in between.
Look, but in practicality, if somebody wants to convert to the court, they can at the moment.
Well, I think we
don't
should
have any
add a little
permitting
clause
process.
saying, anyone who put a pickleball in previous to or after this date needs to follow the new law.
Well, it goes without saying.
But we
Well,
have a
But they
policy.
already have the pickleball court.
But I think to Karen's point,
We can't put this into law
Till we have a public hearing.
until after. we
No,
have
I
a
get
public
that.
hearing.
well, the
So
operative
by
date,
that time, we can put the law in place.
the operative date's also gonna be decision date, not application date.
That's what I was just gonna say. What you're referring to is if the application goes in, I mean, we have in other laws, depending on what it was, have allowed those applications to go through if they are in place, if they're at a certain stage. Or, like Brian just said, if it's only an application, you're not vested yet, you don't have to commit, you haven't dug the ground, then you have to conform to the.
Yeah, okay.
So there's no decision, an application can begin, but until John signs off on the decision, you know, if it gets filed on the 1st of the month, we pass it on the 15th, he doesn't sign it on the 16th, the law on the 15th counts.
All right, can you draft that up?
Yes,
And,
I'll submit it to you for a draft on the.
all right, now, if you want, we can call a special meeting to set a public hearing for it on May, whenever our first May
May
meeting
11th.
is.
May 11th.
But short of doing that, then we will have to wait until May to set the public hearing, which can't be until June.
Well, nobody's in any hurry to get their pickleball.
So let's call a special
We
meeting
can't-
after
we
this
can't
one.
do- We can't do that because you'd have to,
It's the count how.
I would have to advertise it on the 28th, which is next Thursday, in order to meet that 10-day timeframe for the public hearing.
Well, then we can
So that's-
also have a public hearing on the week after.
You could, yes, that's the May 11th one. For the May 18th meeting, then it would be May 5th, I would have to advertise for. So that one I can meet.
Well, then we're only dealing with a 1 week problem, so why don't we aim for May 18th?
Pardon?
Why don't we aim to have the public hearing May 8th?
We can't. We've got to-
Without a special
We've got to
meeting.
have a special
Have a special
meeting
meeting.
to call the public hearing. It's not hard to do a
No.
public supplementary meeting. We just say, we all just have to be.
Like
not
after
we
this
all,
one? Like
Three
next
of
week?
us have to be.
Three of us would have to be here next week.
I'm not just tonight.
Well, can we just set the public hearing tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
We don't
don't they
know.
have to look
We
at the
don't
draft?
know.
Don't they
Yeah,
have?
but the draft only has to, we know what the topic is, the draft only has to be laid on the desk of the Board of Trustees within a certain time period, which will certainly be, I think it's like 5 days or something.
Oh, okay. I thought they had to see the
You
draft.
Educate us.
Yeah, what I would do is, if you want to have it in one of our regular May meetings, I would set the public hearing, I authorize the clerk to set the public hearing, all she's doing is after publishing a summary of the law, which is gonna be the same as what we already have. We're just changing around some of the terms. We talk about conversion, we talk about setbacks, we talk about all those things in the existing public notice. So I'll look at it, I'll give it a quick look tomorrow, and you'll have it, by noon tomorrow. But let's set the public hearing tonight.
Okay.
All right.
I like
Yeah.
that.
I just have to hustle, and we just have to make sure the review looks kind of accurate when we look at it, but my draft.
Let's set the public hearing tonight.
Yeah,
May
today
11th,
for the
May 11th.
next week,
May 11th.
maybe, yep,
and then,
Can we do that here and now?
yes, that's what.
sure, you do have a resolution.
Can I get a resolution to schedule a public hearing on pickleball court permits for
May 11th.
May 11th?
I'll move it.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And you'll make this.
So waiting for me.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
We'll move on to our regular agenda. One visitor, I'm sorry. Minutes. I have minutes from a planning session.
2 sets. You have one for March 9th, and one for March 16th.
Oh, that's right. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Police department, you went over it last week. Do you have
I
anything
did.
you wish to add?
I do not.
So we need a resolution to adopt the tentative budget, which we held a hearing on last week. Unless any board members have anything else they want to say, I'd like to get a motion to approve it, and what do I have to put in the resolution?
The resolution is actually in your booklet. If you want to read it, it's a little short.
I would love to, if I can find it.
It's a go into your old business. It should be the first. It's a real cute
Oh,
short.
okay, I can do that. Whereas the Board of Trustees held a public hearing on April 13th, 2022 to receive public input for the 22-23 tentative budget. And whereas there were no public comments for the board to consider. And whereas the tax levy in the 2022-23 tentative budget does not pierce the tax cap. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees does hereby adopt the 2022-23 tentative budget in the amount of $1,067,775, which includes a tax levy of $390,109 and salary increases for all village employees as depicted on the salary schedule included in the budget documents, and has a tax rate of 0.0625 per thousand of assessed valuation. Can I get a resolution?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, that's my agenda.
It's.
But
the next
here it
law.
is, I got it. And I've got a resolution to adopt local law number 2 of 2022, entitled local law amending village code section 189-3, curb cuts, excavation, and I think driveway permits.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to adopt local law number 3 of 2022, entitled local law amending village code section 30-9I and enacting J, limiting the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. Can I get a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Aye.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Uh,
There you go, Michael.
How,
Thank you very much. I'm really appreciate it. I think we're all going to benefit from this.
since no newspaper covers us, how do we get the word out that this moratorium, this ban on leaf blower, gas leaf blower use commences May 15th?
We sent
No,
it
May
to-
20th.
We sent,
May 20th.
we sent it to the, we have a list of landscape companies that we send it to. Does that get to everybody? No, but it's also 245, right? No, it's not. It's under 30. Okay. So I don't have to advertise it. I could call the papers and they really should because they covered Southampton town. So I could call them and let them know that we just adopted this and hopefully they'll do a little article on it because they do. Southampton town is a big controversy. I was in Southampton Village.
Or if anybody
Yes.
has
I think he
a
said-
landscaping company they would like to have notified, well, notify your own, if you use one, notify them of the good news. Okay. Special events permits. Are we ready to pass these?
Does
Or do we still
anyone have any
questions?
questions?
Do you have all your questions answered?
Mhm.
Okay, then why don't you
Okay,
make the motions?
I move to approve the Cyclamation application, which is for May 21st, the American Heart Association from 74, entering the village via Bridge Lane and continuing to Town Line via Gibson and Daniels.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay,
Aye.
And also the assembly permit for it's much ado about nothing. The Madhu Conservancy, okay. Let's see, they are, it's a benefit garden market and cocktail party, June 18th, from 10 to 4 in the market, and from 6 to 8, the cocktail party at Madhu 618 Sag Main Street. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And then we
Okay, I'll take
have,
this one.
No, you want ARP?
Oh, we do got one.
Oh, no, wait, there's one more. Cats and dogs. ARPs.
oh, yeah, the ARF, the annual designer auction pickup party, May 28th, from 5 to 8, 17 Poxy Bog Lane. I make a motion to approve. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll take care of some election business. Adoption of the following. Whereas the village of Sacaponic will hold its village elections June 17th, 2022. Whereas the mayor and two trustees seats are to be filled with 2-year terms each. Therefore, be resolved that the Board of Trustees does hereby state The polling place will be the Village Hall, 3175 Montauk Highway, Sagaponack, New York. The polls will be open at 12 noon and close at 9 p.m. Can I get a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Get a motion to appoint the following people as election inspectors for the June 17th village election. Emily Aspinall, Mary McCray, John White, Tom White, and Elizabeth Barton, alternate. Can I get a motion to approve them?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Uh, What do we do?
So the tree committee, as you know, had asked, had given you a proposal a couple of months ago in that they were requesting to plant 5 new trees in the village. And so I did an RFP to get prices to supply and plant those 5 trees. In your package is a summary of those RFPs that were received, which I sent to the tree committee. And as you can see, the total cost went from a low of
I can't see
$30,500.
because I can't find.
Right there, that's
Right
it.
there, there you go.
That one.
A low of $30,500 to a high of $85,679.50. So the tree committee has recommended that Realish Tree Service for the amount of $30,500 be awarded the
What's
bid
that?
Peter Greenish.
for those trees.
Right here.
So that's the summer, yes, yes. So in addition to the planting of those trees, there is a summary of the other items that they want to do, a couple of removal of trees and then some removal of 2 trees, one at 149 Daniels Lane, and then one at 47 Erica's Lane.
Where is this?
That's just before the spreadsheet. Flip one more page in front of that, Don, and that's would be the email from they also want to treat 10 of the beech trees on Sagaponack Road for the beech leaf disease. And then they also want to do some kind of canker treatment for 7 beech trees. So all of that cost, and then pruning costs. So the total of all those costs for the, just reading what she found out, is total cost of the 2 tree removals is $2,000. For the partial beech tree treatment is $6,560. So the total cost would be, I'm getting back, about $39,000. Adam has told me that one of the residents is looking to donate $6,000. I have not received it yet.
Can we
Right.
not discuss this, please?
Why not?
Because I'd like to do it in a text. You tell them why, Brian.
About the financial contribution?
Well, it happens. I'm not saying, she put it in there. I'm telling you that they're looking to spend $39,000 from the tree.
Okay, so
They
why
want to spend $39,000, which is the $30,500 for the 5, supplying 5 trees.
Mhm.
And they have the money in the tree fund. So I'm sorry,
So the appropriation would be what?
39,
Not net gross.
39,000.
Well, 33.
To get that 6,000 out of there, that
Zero,
has nothing to do
zero.
with anything. That has nothing to do with anything.
30,000 plus the 6,000 plus the 2.
39,060.
39.
So that's
Yes, I want 100%, Don.
that
I-
we can do.
Okay,
Yes, I'm
so
not- yes,
that's the motion for that figure, so moved, and then,
Second.
okay,
All
second.
in
by
favor?
Karen. Aye.
Page.
And we can not discuss
I'm,
further.
no, absolutely not.
Okay, that's fine. So we've done pickleball, so we get to go on to financials.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions on the financials? No, we've got some more resolutions. So this was a supplemental resolution of the tree appropriation. Is that correct? I don't see it down here.
No, because we haven't spent it yet.
On the financial.
No, I'm not asking to have it paid for yet. I'm only asking to appropriate the money so that they can do it. Once we get the bills in after the work is done, then it will be done.
Anybody have any question on the financials?
No.
Cool. Can I get a motion to approve expenditure of $56,641.05 from the general fund?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to expend $3,931.64 from the planning trust and agency fund?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to spend $12,570.20 from the capital highway fund?
So moved.
Second.
Where is that going?
I'm sorry, what's that done?
The highway fund?
That was for, I think, the last of the, Bill's got the bill, the stuff down on, Danny's Lane, finishing up, I think, of that drainage down there. And I think there's also the excavation for Suffolk County Water Authority on that bill for, paying the claim. And then the starting of Hedges Lane, I think, done.
Did you get that approved?
For the Capital Highway, yes, I
Yeah, I
got a
seconded
motion
it.
and a second.
We didn't vote, though, right?
All in favor?
Aye.
Speaking of which, what is going on down there on that corner?
Hedges corner?
Yeah, there's still a big pile of debris in a triangle, and they've left the shoulder of the northeast corner just bare, rutted ground
Yes, because that's where they ran the main.
with wires sticking out of
Oh,
that.
love wires is probably not good. I don't know what wires before. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what wires would be because
They're
they
like
put the
pipes.
Well, maybe they're
water
pipes.
main in.
They're they're black and they're plastic. and they
Sticking up?
extend
That's a
Yeah, they
sprinkler
could.
system.
above the ground.
Is it a sprinkler system?
I don't know what it
My
is.
husband said it was a sprinkler.
Sounds like maybe somebody's sprinkler system had to be uprooted when they put in the water main.
I may said it
Because
was.
they had it down in
But
the.
what is happening, there are also where they filled in the trenches that they dug
On Sac Main Street,
at the corner.
right.
They are sinking fast.
I understood that and I made a phone call just before this meeting and I couldn't get a hold of anybody. There should be, I
I
believe.
mean, it's a great traffic calming measure.
3 trenches. One was for the main to go across and then the other 2 were to connect the pipes or the drains from the west side to the east side. But they are gonna begin on Sag Main Street to do the paving there because they're not widening or anything there. So they're gonna start there with the repaving. And I think Gary told me they're gonna start there tomorrow to do that. on
They
Sag Main
just
Street.
dug a trench like an hour ago.
Well,
I don't know what
that's,
that's what
to
I don't
get here,
understand.
there are 2 new trenches
Right.
that were recently dug,
Yeah.
that weren't there this morning.
Across the
So
road.
that's why
Across the
I
road,
called,
yeah.
I don't have an answer.
And they've been
I
left
don't
without
know.
cones tonight, and they're deep.
Wait, there's no cones.
I made the call, I don't know what it is, they didn't tell me anything about digging trenches today when Gary came in, so I don't know.
They were dug this morning
Like,
by
they,
11:30.
one
I went
is
over
right to the, south of Hedges Lane, right before the stop sign and then right after.
Oh, I didn't
the
see
stop.
it.
Yeah.
But the ones that I go over, now getting about 8 to 10 inches deep is the sinkage.
Well, they dug the trench, didn't put cones there. It's very,
If someone hits it
Well,
on a
when-
fast bicycle, they're gonna really.
When
get hurt.
they covered it. And it was flat.
I just drove here.
Okay, so
I know,
I,
it's sinking, but when they finished, it was flat.
Not, no, it wasn't, because when I drove home at 1 o'clock, they were digging it. When I came back to the meeting at 2:30, they were finished digging it.
right,
But
I've got an answer for you.
Thank you.
So Gary called Jim, they milled the butt joints where the asphalt overlay will meet the old roadway. Sag Main Street is getting a mill and overlay, Hedges getting the full depth reclamation. So what they did is they milled it so that when they repave it, it butts up to the new road, or to the existing road. So that's what they did today.
What's that got to do with the trench?
That's the trend, what they have to do.
The 8-inch trench?
But don't they have to mark it for safety or something?
All right, so I went through at 11:30 and it was covered with whatever it was covered with, and it was
It-
flat.
Okay, so there's where the, is that where
There was no trench.
They
There
were
was,
digging it at 1:30.
Is that where they are?
well, they were digging another one at 1:30.
Is that where those red lines are?
Across from
Yeah,
there.
that's
Is that
about-
where they are?
yeah.
Okay, so that's,
Yes.
they had to dig the trench so that when they do the overlay, when they do the repaving, it marries up to the existing.
Is the left the north?
The left is the north, yes.
So are there 2 trenches there, the one in red and the one just
Yeah.
south of it?
Yeah, to get here.
Yeah, the one south to it would have been where they put, that's the drain, the black line is.
That's the
drain.
one I went over and that was flat.
Right, so that black line is the drain, the red line is the one they dug today. And then the black line would go down to the south to the new drainage. And then they, the other red line on the south there is, so all between the 2 red lines is where they're gonna repave.
Is that pipe the drainage?
Well,
That long?
the sinkage that I'm talking about is on Hedges
Yeah.
Lane, just north of the triangle, or parallel to the triangle.
Right.
Running north-south.
That did sink a lot.
And
I hope they're not widening the road at the triangle.
No,
You know,
that's
no.
28 feet there.
Good.
but are they going to be filling in where they did put asphalt on it?
Well, that's just patch, something, they did that, those were patches.
I'm just asking you, Rhodey, are they going to leave or are they going to do any remedial work on what were the 2 trenches running next to the triangle at the start of Hedges Lane?
All of Hedges Lane is gonna be dug up and repaved. We took about this, I'm sorry, Don, I don't understand what you're
My
saying.
question.
I don't understand what you're saying, that's why I can't answer it.
They dug trenches here and here to put in new pipes.
Yes,
Then they filled them in
yes,
and then they put pavement on them.
yes,
All right, that pavement is sunk
yes,
about 10 inches.
yes.
Are they doing anything to remediate that?
They will repave that, that was just,
When?
when they start next week, right now, tomorrow, they're doing Main Street. So then from there, they're gonna start going
So
up to
those-
Hedges Lane.
Those ditches are gonna be there for a week. These,
They'll probably take care of it tomorrow.
I'll ask them if they can put a little more fill into them. I'm sure it's settled with the rain we had the other night too, so I'm sure it's settled. But they,
settled.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a construction site.
But if somebody goes over that and disobeys the stop sign, they're gonna have a big surprise.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. I'll talk to, I'll
And
ask Gary
the
tomorrow.
people who have made the stop sign and are making a left turn also should be careful.
No, everybody on that road should be careful.
Well, there's nothing up there to tell them to be careful.
Isn't there construction signs?
No,
There was one, but it blew down on both ends.
Yeah.
But they came today, so they should have put them back up.
Cones at the least.
Okay, I'll get some answers for you tomorrow.
well, this is my agenda. We go to the next page. Reports, Lisa.
Good, nothing happened. Well, obviously, a lot of road things happened this week and whatnot, but I met no meetings
On your
occurred this week on my beat. Next Monday is Architecture and Historic Review Board. And usually when I say things like this, I jinx myself. It looks about a page and a half, so it should be relatively regular in time. So that means Rhoda and I will be listening and be here for hours, but whatever, we'll see. It looks a reasonable sized meeting.
Marilyn, she get out of here by 4:30, so
3 minutes.
you have any report?
I don't, just about the new trees that are getting planted and I'm going to the meeting April 28th about the water quality. So I'll report for that next month.
Okay. Bill, you got anything?
No, we already discussed the trenches and the detours. But they're coming along, we must have $1 million worth of equipment up and down Hedges Lane. So they're all ready to go.
Yeah.
Harry, I didn't mean to diss you.
You didn't diss me. I'm not worried about it.
She did her report, she was,
All right,
and
does anybody have any input? Anybody in the audience? Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
so moved. Second.
Get
All
5
in
of them.
favor?
Aye. Oh, you did it. Perfect timing. Look at that. With 2
Don's
minutes to go.
a man of his word. He held his word to you.